join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay, the secretary will note that we have a couple of board members absent tonight. Our president and vice president both are gone, so here I am. Anyway, we're glad to have all of you with us tonight. And our first action is the oath of office for our newly elected or re-elected board members. And then we'll do reorganization of the board. But Ernie, who is Office 3, is unable to be here, and Amanda Phillips, who is Office 7, is here. So, Mr. White, would you do the honors?
Certainly. Amanda, would you raise your right hand and repeat after me? I, Amanda Phillips.
I, Amanda Phillips.
Hereby declare under oath.
Hereby declare under oath.
That I will faithfully perform the duties.
That I will faithfully perform the duties.
Of member of the Board of Education.
Of member of the Board of Education.
Of Independent School District number 57.
Of Independent School District number 57.
Of Garfield County, Oklahoma.
Of Garfield County, Oklahoma.
To the best of my ability.
To the best of my ability.
And that I will faithfully discharge.
And that I will faithfully discharge.
All the duties pertaining to said office.
All the duties pertaining to said office.
And support, obey, and defend.
And support, obey, and defend.
The Constitution and laws of the United States and Oklahoma.
The Constitution and laws of the United States and Oklahoma.
Congratulations, and welcome aboard again.
Okay, the next item is election of officers. The first meeting in February each year, we reorganize the board. And Mr. White, are you going to officiate at this, or am I? Okay, okay. So I would accept now nominations for board president.
I'd like to nominate Kyle Whitehead for board president.
Okay. Kyle Whitehead has been nominated. Are there any other nominations? Are there any other nominations? Are there any other nominations? Is that 3 times? Okay, okay.
Third time's a charm.
I would then accept a motion to elect him by acclamation.
I make the motion to elect Kyle Whitehead as president.
We need a second?
Second. Okay, we have a second down here. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. Motion carries. So in absentia, Kyle has been elected. Okay, that's
right.
exactly right, right. And board vice president would accept a nomination.
I'll nominate Colin Abernathy.
Okay, Colin has been nominated. He hasn't left yet, so, okay.
I gotta change.
Are there any other nominations? Any other nominations? Any other nominations? Would accept a motion to elect him by acclamation.
I make a motion to appoint Colin Abernathy vice president of the board.
A second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
All
I
right,
didn't hear-
congratulations.
Yes, congratulations, Colin. I think it's something everyone should do at least once.
And here you are, being drugged back into it tonight.
I thought I was, oh well. Item 3 is discussion and possible action to approve the bonds for the district treasurer and assistant treasurer. Would accept a motion for that?
Yeah, Carl's got a few
Okay.
items to mention here.
I do have those bonds in my possession. They're locked in the safe up in the bookkeeping department. They are as required by law for the $100,000 for our district treasurer and assistant treasurer. So they are properly bonded as required by law.
And we do need action on that, so we would recommend approval of that.
Move we approve the bonds.
Second.
Any discussion, questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. Okay, motion carried. Item 4, these are other officers, the board clerk, incumbent clerk, minutes clerk, all filled by Karl White, who works 24 hours a day, I'm convinced. The assistant minutes clerk, Carol Gober and Sammy Brayler. Treasurer, Pam Buckminster, and assistant treasurer, Lynette Rice. And we can approve all of those in one motion.
That is correct.
I move we approve all the appointed officers as stated.
Seconded. Any questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Item C, discussion then possible action to approve entering the official election results into the minutes. I understand that these won't actually be official till Friday afternoon.
They're actually official tonight. Board members, you have a handout. It's on the top of your stack there. You will note that in your board packet on the online version is are the numbers that we received from our election board last Friday. And the only difference from those numbers and these numbers that you have in front of me were 2 provisional ballots that they were waiting on. And there was one person that came to vote who did not have their ID with them at their precinct voting location. They went ahead and let them vote, but did not run it through the machine until Cheryl Patterson was able to actually verify that, yes, they were legal to vote at that precinct. And then the second one was also a provisional ballot that I think the married name was different than the one that was on the voter ID. So again, they had to wait for the for Cheryl Patterson to research that and make sure that that was the same person. And once they verified that, well, then those 2 ballots were counted in the overall official results. So those official results, if you will turn to the second page in that document that you have, those are, as I said, 2 votes different than is in your board packet online. So that changed Proposition 1 to 3,227 yeses. That's 2 more than were originally reflected. The no votes did not change, so a total of 4,913 people voted on Proposition 1, and that changed the overall percentage by 1/100th. So it's now 65.68% as opposed to 65.67%. If you'll turn 2 pages over, Proposition 2 changed 1 vote for and 1 vote against, so total of 4,932 votes total, and that changed the overall percentage again by 1/100th. So a 68.59% passage versus a 68.60. So those are the official numbers. Did not change the result of the elections, thank goodness. And we are just tickled to death about the end result. And as a result of those official election results there, we would recommend approval.
Move we approve.
Second.
Any discussion?
Yay, that's right.
Oh,
That's right.
that's wonderful, yes. And so many people to thank. Let's see, we still need a second.
No, I second.
Oh, you seconded, okay. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, there we go.
All right, thank you
I'm
very much.
not even going to ask. You're opposed. Okay, Amber, would you go ahead with the next item?
Tuesday was a pretty amazing night for our school district and for the children at the end, and it would not have been possible without the hard work and leadership of this board and two community members who just did an outstanding job rallying our community to support our school district and support our children. So tonight we'd like to recognize Chad Dillingham and Jimmy Stones, who are the co-chairs of Friends of Unit Public Schools. They gave a tremendous amount of time and talent for this campaign and for this election, but they also were willing to lend us the trust and the credibility that they. Thank you, sir. The trust and the credibility that they have developed over time to make sure that people understood how important this was for our students. So tonight we would like to give a huge thank you to Chad and to Jimmy.
I would echo that, and Willa Joe, if you'll pick up one of those plaques, and in just a minute, if you will read that into the record. But before she does that, I would just echo what Amber said. We could not have passed the bond election without you two guys and without all of the work that you guys coordinated from the community's end. And I know that it took a lot of folks to work on that effort to make sure that we had the support that we got on Election Day, but it would not have been possible without your leadership. And we wanted to provide you with a small token of our appreciation. And Willa Joe, if you'll read that plaque for us, please.
Each of you, the Friends of Enid Public Schools co-chair, with deep appreciation for your leadership and service to Enid's children. School bond election, February the 9th, 2016. Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it is the only thing that ever has. Margaret Mead. So we are so indebted to you both and appreciate you both so much. This one says Chad. Thank you for everything you've done and continue to do to support our schools.
And Amber's got the other one, and we'll let Amber get a picture of the three of you there, and then we'll let you guys say a word if you want to. Gentlemen, we cannot thank you enough. Let's give them a hand, please. You guys like to say a word? Pull that microphone around, Jimmy.
Well, first and foremost, thank you for giving us the opportunity. You know, the bond election was, looking back, just I couldn't have dreamed that the election results would have come out as well as they did, and I think you have to go back to the formulation of the plan and the time and the effort that was spent by Dr. Floyd and Amber and their staff, and to put together the plan that was all based around. So I think we're very lucky to have Dr. Floyd and people like you know, Amber and your staff who made that. You know, all we did was get the information out to the public. That's truly, you know, Chad and I's job was to make sure the public understood how well thought out the plan was, and so we really appreciate it. I really appreciated being a part of that. So thank you.
Chad?
Thank you, and I echo what Jimmy said, and I would just add that this is really thank you, and we're proud to accept this on behalf of the community, because this was a total community effort, and you know, from input of constructive criticism throughout the process that helped put together an end result that the entire community could rally around, and the board was very wise in listening to the community and taking that feedback and putting forth a group of bonds that are questions that the community really could rally around and support. So I thank the community for their support on this, and thank you all for giving us the opportunity to be a part of it.
Thanks for your time and effort. We appreciate it.
Thanks again. let's see. Number 2 on item D is proclaim the first week of March as Read Across America Week. And I'm really disappointed we don't have do we have someone else here to talk about this tonight?
We do.
Mm-hmm, we do.
Well, good. Do you want me to read
Yeah,
the
why don't you go ahead and
proclamation
read that
Please
first?
do.
Mhm.
Okay. Whereas the citizens of Enid stand firmly committed to promoting reading as a catalyst for our students' future academic success, their preparation for America's jobs of the future, and their ability to compete in a global economy. And whereas Enid has provided significant leadership in the area of community involvement in the education of our youth, grounded in the principle that educational investment is key to the community's well-being and long-term quality of life. And whereas Read Across America, a national celebration of Dr. Seuss' birthday on March 2nd, promotes reading and adult involvement in the education of our community students. Therefore, be it resolved that the Enid Board of Education calls on the citizens of Enid to assure that every child is in a safe place reading together with a caring adult on March 2nd, 2016. And be it further resolved that this body enthusiastically endorses Read Across America and recommits our community to engage in programs and activities to make America's children the best readers in the world.
Yes, absolutely. We appreciate the board's approval of the proclamation. As many of you know, Read Across America there's a strong tradition here in Enid where we partner with Enid Education Association to make sure that we're spreading that message of the importance of reading and also that it's a fun time for children. So at this time, I'd like to introduce Tara Lausch, who is representing Enid Education Association, is a teacher at Garfield, and has been very busy planning events for our students.
So, for that week, we will be doing coloring contests for pre-K through first grade. They're going to decorate a birthday cake for Dr. Seuss's birthday. We want to do something different this year. Second through third grade are going to be decorating bookmarks. Fourth through fifth grade will be design a new character for a Dr. Seuss book. We will be doing Spot the Cat, March the 1st through the 3rd. Clues will be read on air, excuse me, by KOFM at 4 p.m. every day. We will be doing dress-up days. And for any board members that would love to come and read to our students, I know Garfield would love to have you. It would be a great opportunity to have you in our classrooms for our kids to get to know you. I thank our committee members, and I'm very thankful for Matt and Megan and helping get everything together.
Okay, thank you for being here tonight.
We appreciate you coming tonight. Thank you very much.
So do we need to pass the proclamation or?
No, I think
vote
that
on that?
reading it into the
Okay.
record will suffice. And board members, if any of you would like to read at any of our campuses, we'll just let Amber know, and we'll make sure that you get plugged into the place that you would like to go read.
I can say, as having done this before, it's one of the funnest experiences there is. But I felt more pressure reading to first graders than any board meeting I've sat through.
Yeah. Well, the good thing about reading to first graders is you can mess up, and you just forge right on
They
ahead.
called me on it.
Oh, already they did, huh? Wow. Good to know.
But you'll still go back, won't you?
Of course.
Of course, of course, okay.
That is a lot of fun, though.
Audience to visitors, Carol, did anyone sign up for? Okay. And then we're ready for the superintendent's report.
All right, thank you, ma'am. First up, board members, you have an item at your place that says Pearson VUE to HISET. And also in your board packet, you have a number of documents, but I'll just try to summarize it for you here, and it's all under the superintendent's report. There are several attachments there, but basically, and I'm going to ask Jerry Hillman to step up there to the mic, and he brought someone with him as well. Basically, what we are just sharing with you, and this is not an action item because it's just administrative, but GED is, we kind of use that as a generic term, but it is unique to the Pearson Company, and many districts are moving to HISET, which does exactly the same thing, but for a lesser fee. And we just wanted the board members to be aware of that in case you hear from somebody on the street, well, what is this HiSET thing? It's basically students will still have the opportunity to get their GED. It's just called something else. So, Jerry, I'll turn it over to you.
Well, we have adult basic education is fairly new to me. It's been at the Carver Center, and last year it got moved to Lincoln Academy. And it's been a surprising joy to have it there. We have morning classes that run from 8 to 12 Monday through Thursday, evening classes from 4 to 8 Monday and Wednesday, and then we do the ESL classes 4 to 8 Tuesday and Thursday. We're running about 35 adults in the morning classes, 40 in the evening classes, and been averaging about 50 ESL adults learning to speak English. We run 3 different sessions. We run one in August that runs up to December. We start another one in January that's running up to March, and then we start our 3rd program right after spring break, and it goes to the end of the year. Adult Ed doesn't run by 6 weeks or 9 weeks or semesters. It runs by hours. So each adult has to do 40 hours of seat time to get a testing done for that class. We do a pre-test to see what level they're on. After 40 hours of seat time, then we go into the post-test. If they score about a sophomore level, then we say you're ready to take the GED test, which now will be called the HiSET test. But if they aren't ready, then they sign up and do another 40 hours. Al's going to tell you, this is Al Fox, he's going to tell you a little about the Pearson VUE test. He has been a test giver for 8 years now, and kind of tell the process of how somebody gets signed up and you get there to do that.
Mr. Hillman inherited me when we came over from the Carvers there. Anyway, I worked for Clayton for a number of years, started off over there. The GED doesn't even stand for Graduate Equivalency Diploma anymore. They've changed the wording on that, but the state man said that we have a number of the testing centers, as Dr. Floyd said, moving to the HiSET test. The HiSET test is one of the big selling points is it's $70 for the battery of tests. The Pearson VUE is $136. This has made a big difference. You know, a lot of the people watch their money pretty closely on this if they can get it done for that. And they also, under HiSET, they will get, if they don't pass, they have 2 more times to try at no additional charge on a particular test. It seems to have everything going with us. We talked to Lance from the state, and he was very encouraging about what places have already gone to this, how well it has worked for them. I don't know that there's that much more. I'm the person that sits in there. We have a couple of other people that test and are qualified to also give the test, but I'm the chief examiner, and hope we can continue on with the HiSET. I think it very much is advantageous.
I appreciate the information, gentlemen, and board members. You can see in the second paragraph there on that handout that, as Al said, the difference in cost is $70 for a set of 5 tests with HiSET, and 4 tests using Pearson's GED would cost them roughly double that. So cost savings for the testing. And we just wanted to make sure it's not an action item. We just wanted to bring that to your attention. It's an administrative procedure on our end, but just wanted to inform the board. Anything else to add, Jerry?
Nope. Dr. Floyd, can I ask a question? It says they can take it again 3 times within a year. And just out of curiosity, if they don't pass 1 section or 2 sections, do they have to take the entire battery of tests?
They only have to take what they haven't passed.
Okay, so as long as they can pass all of those within a calendar year.
Yes.
They're clear. Okay, that's very neat. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. And board members do know that a number of Oklahoma school districts as well as Texas school districts are moving in that direction, mainly because of the cost. All right, next in your packet, you will see a document that also is administrative and in nature about service animals. You will recall that we do have at least one service animal now. It's an autism dog that is at over at Hoover. Yes, Hoover, and working out very well. This also is administrative procedure, not a board policy, but we wanted to bring it to your attention. And Doug and David are here to answer any questions you might have. You'll notice that the legal term for a service animal includes a a horse, miniature horse. I don't think we're going to have any of those, but that's the legal terminology. Doug, what would you like to say about in summary about this?
I think you're wanting to direct that to Karl.
Or
Karl has
David?
that information.
Okay.
There we go.
There we
The
go.
guidelines follow the Department of Justice guidelines for service animal recognition and the use of service animals in the school building. Mr. McCune researched this with the help of Andrea Kunkel, who works now for the COSA organization, and she is considered the special ed expert in the state of Oklahoma. So we feel like the procedures that we have put together to govern and guide us as we have more and more of these service animals introduced into our school atmosphere are good ones. We use some models from several different schools to study, the primary one being from Edmond, and they've had a number of service animals for several years. So we feel like we've got a procedure that will work for everyone, and I'm pleased to say that what's going on with Mrs. Heiser at Hoover is working quite well as of right now.
And board members, you'll see down there toward the bottom of that document that there are certain guidelines and stipulations about those animals. The animal has to be under control and has to be housebroken, and otherwise they can be excluded from the school. But this service animal that we have over at Hoover certainly meets all those guidelines and seems to be working well.
I
I've
might
got some
add
questions on
one.
this.
Okay, go ahead.
David, you might want to step up to the mic. First question is, I'm assuming these service animals are trained outside of the district and then brought in.
That's correct.
How is it decided where the service animal will be placed?
That's something that the parents provide, and so we don't decide where they're placed. They go with an individual with a disability if they choose to bring them to our sites.
Okay, so it's strictly based.
Initiated, the parents initiate.
Right, the parents initiate. If they want to request that it accompanies a student, then they go with them.
That's correct.
Anybody else?
Well, I just had a quick question about, there are some kind of guidelines about how to behave around a service animal and things like that. And my kids do go to Hoover, so I kind of have heard them talk about their teachers, kind of letting them know. Is there kind of a standard procedure for if a service animal is brought into a building, how to educate the kids on how to interact or not with that service animal and those types of things?
That is not a part of these guidelines here, as you probably noticed. But I would say that Mrs. Heiser did an exceptional job of training the students, and she actually introduced the service animal at one of their morning assemblies and told the students that it was there to do work and that it had a job to do and that it was not a pet, that they weren't to approach it in the hallway or pet it or touch it, those kinds of things. So it's just some really basic information, and this is the material that I plan to use with the administrators so that they'll be aware of what a service animal is used for and the requirements for having a service animal at school. But as far as having something specific, we can certainly come up with that.
Well, it's just kind of site-by-site principles
Sure.
kind of decide.
Sure,
Okay.
every site has their own unique needs and
But it's certainly
students.
necessary, I think, because you can imagine if the principal didn't go over those guidelines with a whole campus full of elementary students, well then, all day long, the kids would want to be stopped with the dog and pet it and all that, and so never would be able to actually get done what the dog is there to do.
Right.
Well, and don't get me wrong, I'm all for this, but worst case scenario, because obviously every first grader listens to the principal's every word. Let's just say, for sake that a student goes and touches the dog inappropriately or does something to spark an event, a student gets bitten, something like that. Where does the liability fall on that? Is it shared amongst the student, parents, and the district? Is it solely on the district? How would that?
That's addressed in the 7th bullet from the bottom. If you'll go up 7 bullets, it says the owner or person having custody and control of the service animal shall be liable for any damages to persons, premises, property, or facilities caused by the service animal. It's a good question.
What if, so do they have to carry insurance to have this within the district?
I would say that's not something we can require.
Because I guess I would think if, and again, worst case scenario, something happens, a kid gets bitten, that student's family is sued. Obviously, if they have insurance, if they don't, then does umbrella coverage occur with the district?
That's one of the reasons we have these procedures in place and have stipulated that the liability is on the part of the parent. That's not going to prevent the parent of the child that's injured from suing us, and obviously we're going to defend ourselves. But we really don't have a choice. We can't deny
I do know that that's part of the
access to
dog's
these
training,
animals.
though, is
Right.
they're trained not to attack if they're approached inappropriately and that type of thing. So
the dogs are extensively trained, and to be a service animal, they have to be able to take a specific action that ameliorates or has an effect upon the child that is positive for that child. It could be anything from assisting the child navigating down the hallway if the child is visually impaired, or calming the child if they get worked up, or sensing that they're about to have a diabetic event. There's all kinds of.
And this is the first service animal experience that we've had, so could be as we get more experience with these animals, we have to tweak and change this. So that's another reason that it's an administrative procedure and not a board policy, because there may be things about this that we need to change, in between board meetings and things like that. But at least this gives us a starting point. And go ahead.
I'm sorry. So why can we not, I'm sure it's legal issues, but ask if it is, or have documentation based on insurance and all that it is an actual service
Why can
dog?
we not require the parent to have insurance?
No, it says staff cannot request documentation for the dog to require the dog is demonstrating its task. How do we know that it is a service dog?
I think those have to do with like discriminatory type laws, don't they?
Well, yeah, but if we're
That, sir, was lifted pretty much out of the U.S. Department of Justice documents, that we can't ask those questions.
But
It would be akin
a
to
parent-
having a person prove that they needed their wheelchair. When they brought their wheelchair, they'd have to show like a doctor's note or something saying, it would be akin to that, I think.
But in this case, the parent clearly communicated with us the reason for the service animal and what was expected and that type of thing. Matter of fact, they even had several days with the dog at home, getting used to the family and the child before they ever released the dog onto the campus. And so
And the trainer actually came to the school campus as well with the dog and spent some
yeah,
time there.
and
Like a week.
I can't really see that anything different being the case, if the parent is gonna go to the trouble of getting a service animal, they're certainly gonna want us to know what it's about and
No,
how
I
it's
get that,
trained
and
and all that. so.
I'm not against it at all.
Yeah,
I'm
but I
not
think
saying
that
even in
terminology is
belief.
mainly legalities about, like Amanda said, delving too much into their private disabilities. But generally, the schools already know, based on IEPs and other documentation, what students' needs are.
Well, to me, it's not the student. It's the animal on the premises.
Right.
Because I've researched this a lot for my son. I mean, there's, some families go to Wisconsin for 8 weeks and train with the dog. Not everybody can do that. So some people say they have a service animal dog, when in actuality, it is not. So that is a real potential problem. So I don't see, if somebody does go that route of fully getting a fully serviceable animal, why being able to show documentation that they've had such training would be a bad thing. It doesn't have anything to do with the child, with disability or not. It's just us ensuring that we have an animal on site who is properly trained and is not a risk to other students.
Mm-hmm.
And some of this language in here, to me, is contradictory in and of itself, and how they say what you can and cannot do as far as asking questions. And it's not talking about the child, it's talking about the service animal.
Mm-hmm.
For example, the fifth bullet point down says the ADA does not require service animals to be professionally trained, certified, trained, licensed as a service animal, or wear a vest, ID tag, or specific harness. So,
But then it says you're not considered a service animal if you're in training.
exactly. So if,
This language makes no sense to me.
so we can't verify it, we can't exclude it, but they're here. And this one instance of the dog in our schools now, I know the family, I know the dog, and it is a phenomenal change that this dog has made in this child's life.
Yeah, I agree.
I'm
Mm-hmm.
1,000% for it, but I do think as a district, there are issues that people could come back and we need to protect ourselves.
Yeah, and this certainly.
That fourth one from the bottom pretty much gives us the authority that if the dog is out of control or doesn't behave properly, to exclude the dog from the classroom. That fourth bullet from the bottom.
My worry, though, is it could be one event that the dog is in control, and then there's one event.
Yeah.
And then where are we as a district?
Yeah, and
Again, I want to make it clear, I am 100% behind this, is what we're doing as a district, allowing this to happen. I just want to make sure we're on good ground from a liability standpoint.
Mm-hmm.
And knowing what sort of animals we have in our schools.
Yeah.
I might go for a ride.
Yeah, well, I do think that that's a good question for our lawyers is, can we require some kind of documentation? I don't know if we've already asked that or not, have we?
I haven't asked it directly. I think we need to consider this a work in progress. This is our first service animal, and this is basically information that we've gleaned from other districts and from the Department of Justice guidelines. And we'll certainly, I've had some of the same questions that you have. In fact, I insisted that we include the clause that deals with liability and licensure and all that sort of thing. So I have some of the same concerns. So this will be a work in progress, and we'll do some more research on it.
Anything else to add, David?
No.
Thanks, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, David.
Thank you.
All right, next we're on to the Enid High School registration guide changes for next year, and then the next topic right behind that is the changes to the middle school registration guide for next year as well. And Doug is just going to touch on the changes only in summary fashion for you.
All right, each year the registration guide is updated and revised, and it is taken back to the high school departments so that they can give their input on any changes that we need to make moving forward. And so you have a list there of removed classes, and some of those removed classes are not the result of them necessarily being removed from being offered. For example, our sheltered English classes are those classes that we offer our ELL population, and it was creating confusion whenever our high school students saw sheltered English on there, thinking, what is that? Can I get in that? And so we just took it out, and those decisions are based on an individual decision. And so we just took those out, and we'll make considerations based on the needs of our ELL population individually. A lot of our classes, we have added early care professional, overview of fashion industry. These are Oklahoma technology classes, and so every year they make changes to their curriculum and their courses. Environmental science, for example, is something that we no longer offer because we now offer life science in its place to prepare kids who are not ready for biology 1 to take biology. Creative writing wasn't offered this year, and so we took that out completely. And then down at the bottom, you can see courses that may be offered online. This would be in addition to what we already offer. So if something does not fit into a student's schedule and they want to take one of these courses, this would be another way for them to do so.
Not in place of.
Not in place of, that's correct. It's just an additional resource for those students who can't fit those classes into their schedule. And then down at the bottom, our course name changes, and that's just basically where U.S. government is now U.S. government financial literacy, because we integrate financial literacy into U.S. government. And then the others are just changes in name, but not changes in course content. And then down at the very bottom where it says pathway changes, in math, we've added pre-algebra, and that's for students who are not ready for Algebra 1. And in science, of course, taking out environmental science and adding life sciences. And so those are the changes for high school.
Let's see if we have any questions about high school before we move on to middle school.
I have a question, and just help me here.
You bet.
Financial literacy going into government class, that makes, to me, 0 sense, and I might be totally missing something that I learned.
It was the same question as I had, so.
Yeah.
I don't understand how those two things mesh.
Well, the law allows us to integrate financial literacy into any course that we really want to. U.S. government is something that students take as freshmen. And so a semester of U.S. government, and then the second semester they take Oklahoma history. Well, in that U.S. government piece, we go ahead and integrate the financial literacy. And so it is tied into some of the standards and content taught in a government class. But, you know, when you think about where do you put it, you know, it's kind of one of those courses where does that fit best? It used to be offered independently by itself. Okay. And this last year, well, and then it's been offered in U.S. history as well. So typically in the social studies department is where financial literacy in most schools is offered.
Okay. It just seems like a very important topic in today's society, teaching our kids.
It absolutely.
That path, and I'm afraid it's getting swept under the rug for them. And for those that might breeze through government stuff and not really, I mean, you know, every kid totally pays attention and gets it all. But you know what I'm saying. It concerns me.
Yeah, there are.
I looked at the list and I saw like consumer education came off, and I thought, well, those two things to me.
Yeah, and consumer education is really more of the home economics. So it's, you know, when we talk about titles.
Right.
And not every student takes economics, so we have to make sure that we put it in a course in which all students take so that we meet the law requirement. But one of the things is Oklahoma is one of very few states that doesn't require us to teach it separately. It can be embedded into the curriculum. And we do have a state-adopted curriculum for financial literacy, and the government teachers worked this summer on finding ways to integrate that into government. So,
Doug.
Yes?
Financial literacy. It's a very broad term. What exactly are we talking about? Because I had the separate class when I went through.
Yes, financial literacy is basically consumer skills such as being able to balance a checkbook, understanding credit card interest, understanding how to develop a budget, understanding your paycheck.
And so how is that not better suited in a mathematics class?
Well, I will tell you, government is not an end of instruction course. And so we can spend a lot more time with financial literacy in a government course than we can in a math course, because most of our math courses are end of instruction tested. I know it's all about testing, but it's one of those things where in order to get through all of the material in math, it's harder to integrate the financial literacy pieces in.
Go ahead.
It's okay.
Okay. You're having a tough sell here.
It's okay. It's all right.
To me, what you're saying is U.S. government, there's a little less importance on fully understanding that subject. Therefore, we can spend a little more time separately in financial literacy. I'm having a hard time buying that you can fully integrate it into a lesson plan about U.S. government, unless you're talking more on the economic side and how things fit that way. But
is this a required?
It is a state required course that has to be on the transcript.
Because I don't feel like it was an optional course that kids took when they wanted a really high grade in a really easy class when I was in high school.
2 or 3 years, I think, has been the mandate for financial literacy. You know, it's one of those things where when you really think about what is one course every student takes where you can offer financial literacy, you know, and you could say Algebra 1. Well, you know, that's pretty spread out. We have kids in 7th grade taking Algebra 1. We have kids in 8th grade taking Algebra 1. And are they really ready for that financial literacy piece? So it's how do we find common ground in finding a course in which every student goes through it and we offer this financial literacy course. And if we offer it separately as a requirement, then we limit the number of classes that a high school student can take because we're requiring them to take a semester of financial literacy and all their other requirements that they have.
So they would potentially miss out on what? Another elective?
Honors courses, concurrent courses, maybe an elective, but it does, the more requirements that you put on a student as far as their course requirements, the less opportunity they have to participate in concurrent enrollment.
I understand that,
I feel like even freshmen, this is really basic math. I mean, from what I remember of it.
No, and it's not really a math, it's not math, so I guess that maybe I need to make that clear. It's not really a math course. They're not getting out calculators and, you know, last year the course was a Dave Ramsey course. And so basically what they did was they took the Dave Ramsey video series and the materials that accompanied that series and went through that.
Which is excellent, by the way.
It is excellent. And we now have adopted curriculum that the State Department has given us to accompany whatever course we teach financial literacy through. There are some seniors, juniors and seniors who, if they miss out on that financial literacy piece because we just embedded that into government and we no longer offer it as a separate course, they take an online course through Wioki, which also is that financial literacy piece that they need for the transcript. But I would be happy to have the Social Studies Department share with you how they integrate and embed that, and I can bring information to you to kind of share with you the process of integrating that into the curriculum.
To me, it seems as if we're watering down 2 subjects to keep the potential of an extra class, when to me, financial literacy is a highly important class for a high school student to take because they're going to be a broke college student in just a few years. Absolutely. And they really need to know how to budget, how to balance a checkbook, and there's lots of other things that are included in that. But to me, it's important enough that it stay separate and not be just merged into something else.
Well, if I can throw in for just a second here, my son actually last semester went through that process, and it sounds awkward and it sounded odd when we enrolled him, but very, very successful integration into the curriculum and how they did it. I don't know that it really took anything away. There might be a little bit of synergy there that we don't necessarily see because we're not in the classroom, but what AJ would bring back is he didn't use this terminology, but it was sort of a project-based learning approach where they would get to a particular subject where they would talk about national debt and they would talk about taxation and funding and how you work interest rates. And and this is, in his class, it was a coach. So it took a very practical approach to how they did it, and it worked like clockwork. I mean, it was seamless, and AJ got it and thought that was a great segue. So my 2 cents, that part of it works pretty good because it certainly would not have integrated well into the pre-calculus course he's taken. But it seemed to be a great pair with the government subjects as they were talking through those issues, and it was sort of combined to those issues that they talked about when it comes to there's, you know, macro and microeconomics and down to managing your checkbook, and here's what interest is, and covered those basic subjects. The one challenge I would say is, and I think this was just a byproduct of getting the schedules where you wanted in the high school, switching the government course between seniors to freshmen, and where my son came in as a sophomore, that created a little bit of hiccup when it came to the scheduling piece that's going to happen no matter what. But my 2 cents is it seems to work pretty well integrating into the subject of discussing government issues. So,
But I think there's also benefit in providing that financial literacy instruction at the freshman level so that they have that well in advance of going to college or getting out in the real world rather than getting it just at the last minute in a senior course.
And I think our teachers also had the same concern, and that's why this last summer they were given an opportunity to actually work on embedding that into their curriculum so that it wasn't a haphazard approach to integrating that in. They've actually found places where they can integrate some of those themes into their existing curriculum.
Well, I think the success of that, though, is a credit to our teachers. That doesn't necessarily mean that we need to be doing it that way. That just means we have teachers that are adapting well to what we're throwing at them. So
absolutely.
That's just my 2 cents.
And obviously, by no means am I a teacher or any sort of content specialist when it comes to this. So if the district thinks that this is working and it's majority, that's fine. But I would be curious. I would like to see a syllabus or something, just for my own curiosity as to how it flows in seamlessly, because you've got my interest.
You bet. I'll present a pacing guide to you that will basically show you where it's incorporated into each lesson, and that way you can kind of take a look at it and see.
I have to go back though, JJ, that was a great explanation because it made me think of these high school students who hear on the news all the time about our national debt and stuff, and they probably have a really good connect at that moment in time.
Just a couple of subjects that segue right into it are the federal regulation of banks, the role of the central bank in controlling the economy. There's all kinds of governmental topics that can go right into both micro and macroeconomics. I think it's a perfect place to have it personally.
Does anybody else want that pacing guide information other than Colin?
I'd be curious to see it. Yeah.
We'll just send it out to all of them.
And Karl, that's kind of what I was thinking. I can understand it in a macro and microeconomics, but when I think of the financial literacy, I'm thinking more of how do you personal finance. Yeah. Yeah.
Doug, I have another question.
You bet.
This one might be a little easier.
Okay.
Early care professionals, one of the added classes, what is that?
Early care professionals is basically a class for those that are interested in learning about early childhood education or in a daycare setting, as far as training them for early care professional
growing our own
jobs. Growing our own, and those are all through Oklahoma Career Technology Center, and so those come with a curriculum. It is an elective.
Okay.
Yes.
As is overview of the fashion industry.
Yes.
Okay. That's what I have to say. I saw financial literacy gone and overview of the fashion industry.
Well, and the difference between like teacher cadet and early care professionals is just the age that they're, the demographic they're trying to teach to, or?
Well, I'll tell you what.
Is teacher cadet still?
Teacher cadet is still, we have added that back in. I believe we
Okay.
did that last year.
Okay.
And that is basically an elective class for students who want to learn more about entering the career field of education.
Right.
And typically those kiddos are not necessarily focused on the early childhood piece as they are the traditional K pre-K through 12 setting. We have students who are going to actual school sites that are in our teacher cadet program. It's ran by Mr. Hugaboom, and they're actually getting some hands-on experience, and again, trying to grow our own and get students to be encouraged to participate in
I
education.
did that in high school. It was fun.
And I can, if you want, I can look at that early care professional. It's in here somewhere. Okay, so family and consumer science. There it is right there. Early care professionals. This course prepares students for careers as child care owners, directors, and administrators. The course will improve and enhance the knowledge of students entering child care management.
One more.
You bet.
This American Sign Language, what kind of credit do they earn for that, and what category?
They receive foreign language credit for American Sign Language, and Mr. McCune was gracious enough to allow us to use one of his special education staff 1 hour each day next year to teach American Sign Language. So we'll offer ASL 1, and the next year we'll offer ASL 2.
I think this is fabulous.
I
Just
think
gonna
it's
throw that out
I
there.
think it's a great opportunity for
Awesome.
students.
Grow your own
That's
Grow
right.
your own.
So awesome.
in a teacher shortage situation.
I've got one question, and this is kind of related to some of the military families that you might see kind of coming in on the sheltered English classes. I don't have any real concerns about like sheltered biology necessarily being struck from the curriculum, but sheltered English, it seems like that provides that opportunity for those and there's several different levels of ability to speak English and learn in other classrooms, but of all the classes, it seems like that sheltered English class is an opportunity to really build English skills. How do we kind of weigh that against the growth in population that we anticipate over the next several years, a large portion of which are Hispanic and Marshallese, not necessarily primary English
Right.
speakers?
We have one section of ELL sheltered and for anybody that doesn't know what sheltered classes are, basically it's a smaller teacher-student ratio, and they are students who are English language learners, and it provides them more one-on-one instruction. Typically, there are teacher's assistants and ELL assistants that go in and help the teacher with those kiddos, and so we are seeing a rise. We know that we went from 5% to 16% in the last 5 years in our ELL population, and so we're definitely going to have to address that need and make sure that we're offering those supports to those students. And in addition to the sheltered classes, we also have some of our ELL assistants that also go into the regular classroom, because it's also important that ELL students who are in a sheltered environment also have that language-rich environment. And sometimes when students are in a classroom together and they do not have peers in there that are fluent in English, it's great also for them to have that benefit of being in classes with their peers. And so we definitely are going to have to address the needs of those, that growing population as far
We
as
still have it,
courses.
we're not.
Yeah,
taking
just
it
for
away.
clarification.
We didn't get rid of, we didn't,
It's just being stricken from
right,
what's
we didn't
being
get
given
rid
out
of
to all
any of those
students.
courses. We just took it out of the registration guide so that there wasn't confusion amongst the other peers as to, hey, can I get into sheltered English?
What it is.
I got you. That makes a lot of sense.
Any other questions on the high school guide? And then on the middle school guide, we have a list of courses that we may be able to offer through a virtual classroom. We have Edgenuity, which is an online system. And so SAT prep, ACT prep, all of these courses are courses that we do not currently offer at the middle school level. And so what this would do is provide students the opportunity to take some of these elective courses in an online setting that they would not have that availability to with our current schedule. And then we've added Technology Grade 6, Introduction to STEM, and that kind of leads into conversation about a grant that we have applied for. It's called the Gateway Grant, which is through the Oklahoma Technology Center. It's a project-based curriculum, basically in design and modeling, and so it is a robotics course, and it's a coding course where students will be able to have more of a project-based approach to technology using science, technology, engineering, and math. We have applied for the grant at Longfellow, and so if we're awarded that grant, we would start at Longfellow with the Intro to STEM class. And then our goal would be to eventually move that to the other middle schools as well, as funding allows us to do so. Outdoor education was something that was already, it was offered at Waller, but it wasn't in the registration guide. And basically it's archery, knowledge of hunting and fishing, leadership grade 7, yearbook, and Tamundo. Those are classes that we've added to the registration guide. And then you see down there at the bottom, remove classes. That doesn't mean that we no longer have literature, and it doesn't mean that we don't have pre-AP literature. It just means that we have combined language arts and literature together in a combined approach versus them being two separate entities.
Just retitling.
Mm-hmm.
On that first group,
Uh-huh.
those things that are available online,
Yes.
are those available with no charge to the students?
They are available at no charge to the student. We have Edgenuity, which is our online education program. And so really what we vision is that we can have a computer lab open with 30 computers, and students could go in, and if we didn't offer an elective that they wanted, and they had the aptitude to participate in some of these courses, this would be kind of an enrichment opportunity for those kiddos to be able to participate in something that we don't currently offer.
Is this like in the high school where they could also do it in addition to their current coursework?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Correct.
So would that mean having a full-time facilitator in that lab?
It would, it could even be a teacher's assistant, someone that facilitates, because Edgenuity actually offers the online tutorial. They teach the student that concept, and there's usually someone there there will be someone there to monitor, obviously, and answer any questions if there are any.
Anybody else? All right, thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
This last item that I have on the agenda is item E, and that is an action item that is in your board packet, board members, and that is a multi-jurisdictional hazard mitigation plan update. Basically, it's from the Department of Emergency Management, and the short version of this is that basically if the board approves tonight, we are agreeing to participate with other agencies and entities in our county in the event of an emergency. You know, it could be, we provide them a place of shelter in one of our gyms if there were a tornado or something like that. And it goes on, but basically they've been through a lot of steps already, and each entity now has 60 days to ask their boards to approve, and then we send it back to the State Hazard Mitigation Officer, and once they collect all those together, then they send it on to FEMA. So certainly we want to be a good participating agency, and as a result, I would recommend approval of this. And upon approval of the board tonight, then Willa Joe will ask you to sign that original tonight. So recommend approval of that one.
I move we approve.
Second.
Any questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. Motion carries.
Okay, thank you. I do have a few additional items. Karl, you have that original of that mitigation thing for Willa Joe to sign later on? Okay, thank you. Yeah, I doubt they want to wade through all of that. Board members, you do have a copy of this journal at your place, and actually has two articles in this, interestingly enough, in this February edition. One actually wrote two articles. One is on page 10 about, they have a section in this national journal called Sports Venues, and so I told them I would write an article about David Allen Memorial Ballparks. That's on page 10. And then also they have a section entitled From the School Board Member's Perspective, and volunteered to write an article highlighting our 40-year school board member, and then also Jim Vanderlyn is the other one who has served on his school board for 40-plus years as well. And he actually serves on the publications committee with me, and coincidentally enough, we meet twice a year, this publications committee for this High School Today journal, and it's published by the National Federation of State High Schools Association. We meet twice a year in Indianapolis, and this past weekend was actually one of those weekends, and so these are hot off the press, and I think I'd emailed you a copy of these two articles, but since they're hot off the press, I wanted you to have your own copy. So congratulations to Ms. Fowler for being published in a national journal, and that's good information. We certainly thank her for her many decades of service as well. Let's see, got 2 or 3 other items here. Wanted to mention to you board members that we are hosting the OSSBA district meeting that comes up on March the 24th. We certainly want to put our best foot forward and be a good host to all of the OSSBA folks in our, is that district or region meeting?
Region.
Region, that's what I thought. I wrote down district, but
Six counties, and we are anxious to show them, of course, our new administration building. This is where we'll have it. But as hosts, I hope the whole board.
yeah, certainly want to encourage you to attend, and let's kind of go around the horn here and see. It's the meeting is 4:30 to 9:30, and it'll be here in this room, and that is on March the 24th. So I need to see who can come, and Karl will get us all registered. Okay, JJ's in, Amanda's in, Colin's in, Milla Jo's in,
Pending
Matt.
food, right?
All right, so if you'll get us all registered, and go ahead and register Ernie and Kyle as well. Oh, okay, are we doing Copper Pot, or what are we doing? Okay, so that question came up when we were meeting with Willa Joe this morning. I didn't know you were already on top of that, so appreciate it. And there may be a possibility that Ernie might be interested in serving as the district director in the absence of Ms. Fowler coming off of that board shortly, so certainly want to encourage him there. One other date I wanted to mention to you, board members, is March the 31st, which will be a week after that OSSBA region meeting. This is a meeting that's mainly for administrators, but since we are hosting it, I wanted to go ahead and invite you. On March the 31st, we will be hosting the USSA regional meeting. That's the United Suburban School Administrators Association. I serve on that board now, and that Region 3 meeting we will host from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. Here in this room. And it's an all-day thing, so they may use some breakout rooms as well, but we'll be dealing with legislation and law and architects and fraud and FERPA and a number of other things. So, but since we are hosting it, I wanted to invite you, board members as well. If you would like to attend, just let Karl know, and she will get you registered. Turn your mic on there for us, please.
They told me they thought the last attendance was 70. Does that sound about right?
It does.
Okay.
And and so they take care of inviting all of the regional
Yes.
boards, right? Okay.
All we have to do is have the setup ready and take care of the food. And Kelly has taken care of it in the past, but I know it's kind of hard to get people to work at night, so whatever works out, we can plan on that. And
As far as setup, the way we had it set up for the legislative breakfast Friday morning, does that work? We had the tables set up, remember?
yes, yes, that would be great.
And when I think back about some of the things we've done special when we've hosted them, I just want to assure you we're working on that too.
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Yes. You know, Enid is the farthest west of all of the school districts in our region, so sometimes they get a little fussy about coming this far.
They think they're going to the end of the earth when they come to see us.
They do, all the way to Enid. But that's why we start, and actually our meeting will be over before 9:30, I'm sure, because people do have to drive home after that, so. We have a long drive. Yes, you do.
All right, that'll be a very good thing for us to host, and we appreciate you volunteering us to do that. And actually, we got two big events back-to-back weeks, so USSA and that one. Okay, Mr. Stafford, I'm going to ask you to say a word of information about the mandatory random drug testing that we will be beginning to share with students and parents shortly, such that they are prepared for the summer and the fall.
Yes, we have collected bids from the different vendors who collect hair follicle. We're right now looking at an Enid company to facilitate our test. We are planning on having an athletic meeting prior to the physicals that we have as a district. If you're familiar with that, we offer physicals in the food court. The Enid High School PTSA usually sponsors that. And we plan on having a parent meeting prior to that to discuss the mandatory random drug test policy. We're also going to be discussing NCAA guidelines for athletes, and also a time for us just to visit about expectations and program covenances for football and soccer, all of the sports. But we are going to, at that time, answer any questions that parents may have regarding any concerns regarding the hair follicle collection, because, you know, for a parent, when they hear that, you know, we're going to collect hair follicle, there's a lot of different things that come to a parent's mind. And so we want to make sure that they have all of the communication and education and information so that they feel at ease with the process.
And the main reason we're rolling that information out to students and parents now is such that a student doesn't mess up during the summer and say they didn't know.
Correct, because there will be a 3-month residual on hair follicle. And I just wanted to make clear that it does detect amphetamines, cocaine, opiates, marijuana, and some prescription drugs, but it does not detect alcohol. So I didn't really think about that whenever I looked at that 5-panel, but a hair follicle test does not detect alcohol use. So just wanted everybody to be aware of that. Basically looking at 100 strands of hair for that test, and which they relate to the diameter of the tip of a shoestring. But anytime you start talking about that, it is certainly something you want to make sure parents understand. So we're definitely going to...
It's random, not every student.
It is random, and we're going to answer those questions, and Amber's going to work with us on getting out some messaging as well so that everybody feels at ease with the process.
Basically, we want to use it as a deterrent for students and give them a reason and an excuse to say no.
And I think the word that's out there on a preliminary level, I think it certainly has got that message across.
Hope that's right. Any questions on that before we move on? All right, board members, I sent you information about the Speaker of the House bringing the Oklahoma Speakers Ball to Enid. That's the good news. The bad news is the cheapest ticket to that is a $150 individual ticket. So certainly not something that we're going to be able to pay for you to attend that. So if you want to shell out that kind of money, you certainly are welcome to do that. I will be representing us at that. As I mentioned earlier, that I serve on the board for USSA, and they will have a table there, and they have invited me to join them at their table, so at least we will have a representative there. But the cheapest ticket is $150, or you can serve as a presenting sponsor for $20,000, or be an underwriter for $10,000, a benefactor for $5,000, or a friend for $2,500. So that's an expensive venture.
What's the date on that again?
That is Sunday, February the 28th, and the reception starts at 5:30. It's at the event center. Reception 5:30, dinner at 6:30, and it is black tie optional. If you want to attend, I can ask if there is a seat available at that USSA table. Do you? No? Anybody else have a burning desire for me to ask that question for them?
moving on then. That is a special deal, though, for Enid to be able to host that, so I appreciate the speaker bringing that here. One of the first times they've been out of the urban areas,
Yes.
the city and/or Tulsa. Okay, another date, board members, I want to mention to you, and we'll probably mention this later on in the agenda, but I believe Karl called all of you to see if you were available for an April 7th noon board meeting. We need to sell some bonds. That will be the date, the first date that we will be selling bonds. But then also, Willa, Joe, and I were talking today about this, that we postponed our planning session until after the bond election, and so we might be able to kill two birds if you guys could allocate an hour to an hour and a half that day. We could do two things: sell the bonds and then conduct a board planning session, and I would imagine most of it will focus on bond issue information, but we might have a few other topics there. So wanted to kind of go around the horn here and see if you would be able to allocate about an hour and a half on April the 7th or not. Yeah, we'll provide lunch, and it'll start at noon. You're good?
Yeah.
You're good? Yes? We're good? Okay, so everybody's good. If you'll touch base with Ernie and Kyle and let them know as well, I'd appreciate it.
They wanted to say no, they would have been here.
Yeah, there you go. That's right. Board members, I think you guys get these hard copies in the mail from OSSBA. Everybody get one of these. That's good information because it lists not only the regional meetings, but a number of other meetings there. So just wanted to mention to you that if you ever look through that stuff and decide you want to go to any of those meetings, just holler at Carol and let her know, and she'll get you registered.
The date for Day at the Capitol on there.
Let's see
I
here.
think that was a separate, I know they said something separate.
Okay.
Day at the Capitol, March 29th.
I knew it was close to our regional meeting.
You're not on there?
I'm
You're not getting?
emails, but not paper.
Yeah. Carol, can you check on that for her? Amanda, she's not getting these hard copies. So if you'll check on that for her. Mm-hmm. Did you get this one that says for new board members?
I've seen an email about that though.
I forwarded that to you today, to all of you. There's a couple of meetings coming up in Tulsa and one in the city, specifically for new board members. So, I think if you, any of you folks that are relatively new to the board, if you want to attend any of those, let Carol know, and she'll get you registered for that as well. I believe that is the extent of my superintendent's report. Madam President, fill in.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much.
If you were the cause for the length of it this time.
I know, I'm sorry.
Our next item is number 4, the consent agenda, and we can vote on all of those with one motion unless there's one that someone wants to remove to consider separately. Do I have a motion to approve?
Move we approve.
Second?
Second.
Questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Okay, then on B, we do need separate motions, and Mr. White, do you want to take us through those,
Certainly.
please?
General fund encumbrances for fiscal year 2016, purchase orders 1799 through 1891 for $69,303.90. We recommend approval.
Move we approve.
Second.
Questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no. Okay, number 2.
General fund change orders, purchase orders 1 through 1798 since January 14th for $296,923.56. Recommend approval.
Move we approve.
Second.
Questions?
I do have a question. Michael Canale, the second line item, is that the produce
Just a
company?
second. Let me grab my book. What was the purchase order number?
204.
204. Can tell you, yes, that's for fresh produce.
Okay, perfect.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no. Motion carries. Number 3,
Building fund encumbrances, purchase orders 52 through 56 for $49,976.59. Recommend approval.
Move we approve.
Second.
questions?
What is the acquisition of school improvement?
That is the money that the Build America bonds did not cover for this year's payment to the authority for the improvements that were made in the 2010 bond issue. We financed partially with Build America bonds. With sequester, we didn't receive as much of an interest rebate as was anticipated because the federal government didn't fund it, and so we had to make up the difference out of the building fund. This is, I believe, the third year that that's happened.
Any other questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. Motion carries. Number 4,
Activity fund for donations and gifts, encumbrances, purchase orders 58 through 62 for $1,211.73. Recommend approval.
Move we approve.
Second.
questions?
What were we doing paying for New Year's Eve transit?
That is out of the Lori Boland Fund. If you recall, she was killed by a drunk driver on New Year's Eve. Her parents set up a grant, which is run through this Gifts and Donations Fund, and that's part of the grant as we provide rides home after New Year's parties.
We separately, independently as a district, or do we?
No, this is all donated money. This
No,
is,
I know that, but does it go to a larger fund to help all of Enid? I mean, who's involved in this?
this basically goes to the independent taxi cab companies that provide the rides.
Say that again,
We don't
Karl,
have any
please.
taxis.
Well, there's a Sooner taxi that operates here.
We need
Yeah.
Uber is what we need.
So,
And this is something
what was
that
the total on
the
that?
Boland family does this every year, and they
so
come in.
it's
and-
not taxpayer money, it's donated
Oh, no,
money.
it's all donations from the Boland family and the original memorials that were given after their daughter was
Are
killed.
we the only ones who contribute to paying for free rides? I mean, are there any other?
That grant is all that I'm aware of, yes. And we're just the trustee for this grant.
Oh, it's great
Yeah,
that they're doing that.
Yeah.
I was just confused why.
Yeah.
Any public
Why it went
schools
through us,
Yeah.
is part of that.
it's not taxpayer or public money. It's
good
a
question.
grant specifically for that. They do,
Do
they
that
all,
when you were in school?
I was in bed by 10 o'clock.
Any other questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. Motion carried. Okay, discussion then possible action to approve the district financial report for January. Mr. White?
all of you received the one-line summary. There are a few copies of the detailed report if anyone's interested. No one seems to be interested in that anymore, but I do have them here if anyone wants them, and I do provide them to the newspaper if they're interested. I'm really required to do that, especially the activity fund stuff that's only part of this and is not in your one-line summary. So it is basically to meet statute. Our collections are coming in pretty well. The local revenues are looking good. Even gross production hasn't decreased as much as I thought it would. Our federal sources are coming in, as are our county sources. However, I'm becoming increasingly concerned about state sources, and that leads me to a supplemental spreadsheet that probably was right under that magazine.
Yep, you have a single document, looks like this. Board members at your place.
I'll spend actually a little more time talking about that than the actual finance report for January. Early in the month of January, as a matter of fact, we started getting really strong vibrations about what was going on at the state level over Christmas break. We started hearing about the potential for a 3% cut from the Office of State Finance, Preston Dorflinger, and of course that did materialize. Our State Board of Education did the best they could, I think, to protect local districts, but this represents, with the exception of the first line, exactly the cuts that were made by the State Board of Education in their January meeting after they were cut some $49 million by the State Office of Finance. Now, I do need to let you know that tomorrow the State Excise Board will probably also certify a second revenue failure that will add to the pain, and I fully expect probably a third round of revenue failure budget cuts from the state level before the end of this fiscal year. What this shows is actually I've doubled the amount that we were cut in January on the foundation and incentive aid, which is our largest source of revenue. What we were actually cut was about 1.3%, but I already had information at the time I put this together that it's called the 1017 Fund. It's named after House Bill 1017 that was pushed through the legislature by Governor Henry Bellman, made some huge changes in public education in Oklahoma, and provided a large raise for teachers and a funding source. Well, the 1017 Fund will be certified more than likely tomorrow as having a significant revenue failure, and that's why I stuck with a 2.6% reduction in state aid. Bottom line is, taking into account what I was aware of during the month of January, that being 2 rounds of cuts, we're going to lose money that was appropriated to us, that we've built our budget on, approximately $850,000 this year. The picture for next year is going to be even more bleak. There's talk of anywhere from an 8 to a 13% cut in state appropriations to schools. Right now, the situation that we're in is the leadership in the House and the leadership in the Senate haven't agreed on whether or not to step in and dictate how the cuts will be made during this fiscal year. So what is going to be coming down the pipe for the rest of this year is across-the-board cuts to all agencies. The State Department of Education, as its own agency, did its best to protect schools and see to it that all schools participated in the pain. Next year, and for the remainder of this year, another factor that we need to take into account when we look at the problem that we're in, and Sean Heim mentioned this at our legislative breakfast Friday morning, but the schools in the northwestern part of the state that have large amounts of gross production tax are gradually losing that, because part of the problem with the low price of gasoline and oil is people are not encouraged to drill as much, and so our tax base is declining. That is a chargeable in the funding formula. And that means that schools like Enid and Points West that get even percentage-wise a larger cut of their revenue from gross production tax are not going to have as much charged against them, so they're going to be pulling more out of the formula. So the funding factor, which is the per capita amount that goes through the formula, I'm hearing predictions that that will be decreased by somewhere around an additional $60, just to take into account the fact that gross production schools are not going to be penalized as much for their local wealth. So we have a number of dynamics that are taking place here, and for the remainder of this fiscal year, we're going to need to be very careful how we spend our money and make some definite plans to reduce our expenditures for the coming year. So your central office administration is going to be meeting very soon to start mapping out our plan and looking at how we're going to be able to afford to operate. We will spend down our fund balance slightly this year, but the amount that it looks like we're going to spend it down is much larger than what I had originally anticipated, obviously because of these mid-year cuts. What we really have to plan for, though, is fiscal year 17. This is a 3% reduction, and on foundation 2.6, they're talking about somewhere between 8 and 13. That's a huge amount of money for us to be able to tighten our belt.
That 8 to 13 reduction for next year, is that solely aimed at education, and it's going away from just across the board 3%?
Well, that's what we think they'll cut education. And I'm not sure, based on the $1 billion hole in the budget, what other agencies will be cut, but this is what education leaders are talking about. And I don't think that's an across-the-board cut. I think their intent is to try to protect education as much as possible, but that's what I'm hearing where we'll end up. And it's not good news, but we've been through this before. We're going to have to make some tough decisions, and obviously it's going to affect some programs, and we will do our best to present you with a menu of options that is as palatable as possible and does not negatively affect instruction in the classroom any more than necessary. But
so just to summarize here, board members, this sheet here that Karl's provided you with incorporates his best guess estimate of the first revenue failure information that came out in January, and then the second level of revenue cuts that most likely is going to come out tomorrow. So we feel pretty confident about this. The question mark for this fiscal year that will end June 30th is, will there be a third one? And if so, well, then that bottom line figure there will increase. Now, you might recall that we started preparing for this a year ago and made some cuts of our own volition simply in preparation for this day. And so Karl's right, we'll be spending down some of our fund balance, but it would have been worse had we not made some of those decisions a year ago. And what we have in front of us are some even more difficult decisions moving forward based on that 8 to 13% cut or whatever it ends up being. Not good news.
I'm sorry to be the bearer of bad news, but that's the reality of what we're dealing with.
You notice that professional staff development is cut about half.
Yes.
That's one of the very strong recommendations of the state visioning process.
Yes.
That professional development be increased.
Yeah, and what's even worse about that is here we're about to have new standards coming about that is going to necessitate staff development, professional development for teachers to get up to speed on those new standards such that we can be ready to roll those out. And so getting hit from several different directions here.
Enid has been a leader recently in providing professional development for its faculty and staff, and unfortunately we're going to have to roll some of that back because that was slashed by 50%. And we do have a local budget, but with the loss of state revenue, that the only thing we can do is replace that, because basically we had committed all or most of the state money before we knew about this cut.
And just as a reminder, when you're looking at significant cuts for next year, whether it be 8 or 13% or somewhere in between, when 80 to 85% or more of your budget is tied up in personnel, that's really the only place that you can make significant strides in budget cuts. And unfortunately, that's the situation that school districts are in. We're so heavily laden on the personnel end that you can nickel and dime supplies and stuff like that to death and never make a blip on the screen on reductions. So just we'll be providing you lots more information about what our plans are once we have a chance to get all the information from the state, but also we're trying to be proactive, and we'll be meeting in the next week or so, as Karl said, at the central office level, and then go from there.
Would, even though it's very dismal, I would appreciate approval of the district finance report.
Move we approve.
Second.
Other questions?
You said spending down the fund balance, you're still gonna be within,
We'll be in much better shape than a lot of districts. We have peer districts that are really concerned about next year being able to pay all their bills. We'll be in much better shape than they will, but
So are we potentially looking at like a situation next year like Louisiana's looking at this year?
I'm not real familiar with the condition that Louisiana's in, but we are going to try to do what we have to do through attrition as much as possible.
But Karl's right, there are districts that are in a financial bind right now that are going to have to take drastic measures just to finish out this year, much less worry about how they're going to deal with next year.
Our associations are actually offering workshops for administrators on how to issue non-fundable warrants, which means you don't have cash in the bank to cover your expenses, and how to go through the process of a judgment in which the taxpayers have additional taxes levied through the courts to pay the bills.
Fortunately, that's not us.
That is not us.
Let's try to stay out of that if we can.
Definitely.
Voted,
We have a motion and a second,
We
I
have a
believe.
motion and a second. Any other questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no. Okay.
Way to be a downer, Karl.
Yeah. Well, I know how many other districts around the state, though, are in dire circumstances, and we appreciate you for keeping our head above water. It's like a little farther above water.
Hopefully we won't have to use a snorkel.
Oh dear. Item D is a change order to the contract for the paving repairs and replacements. Mr. White?
As you recall, this is a district-wide project. The contract is for just a little over $1 million, $1,070,550. We did discover a significant overplan in the original drawings for pavement that was to be done at the Carver Adult Education Center, which is now our Early Childhood Center. And most of the changes that you approved just last month for change order number 1 were covered by that credit for not paving an area that really didn't belong to us. It was really on Booker T. Washington property. However, some of the additional work that was planned for Hoover, there's a large number of wheelchair using students at Hoover, and to connect the ramps and provide turnaround space for those wheelchairs adjacent to the parking spaces requires adding some more sidewalk. And that'll cost about $6,545. That's the amount of this change order and what it'll be used for. So we recommend approval of change order number 2 to complete the planned improvements for the handicap access at Hoover Elementary.
move we approve.
Second.
Any questions about this change order? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? No. Motion carried. New business. Do we have any new business?
Don't believe we do.
Reports, items of information, board comments and/or questions. Colonel?
Thanks. Just two things. First, on the 1st of February, we had an Air Force Community Partnership meeting that was hosted here at the district, so I appreciate all of the support from the district. Phenomenal meeting, more to come on that. Our next one's the 29th, that again is being hosted here, so thanks in advance for that. But a lot of great discussions. I know you had to step out, Dr. Floyd, but there were a couple of teachers here, great ideas that we're actually going to carry out. So that being said, the second thing I have is kind of down at the tactical level, I guess. We're doing something out at the base that we're calling Airmen for a Day. It's a program that we're kind of setting up for kids that are basically somewhere between probably the 4th grade and freshman in high school, where we bring them out to the base, spend a half a day, and let them be an airman and do some of the things that airmen do. So I will shoot you sort of our concept of operations, if you understand what that is, that talks through that process. We've already reached out to a couple of the principals to get some nominations to identify some kids for that.
What age level are we talking about?
4th grade through about freshman in high school. We don't want to get it too old. This really isn't intended to be a recruiting thing, which I think the perception would be left. This is intended to just expose kids that don't really get exposed to Vance Air Force Base and the Air Force and something different. And we're leaving it up to administrators in the schools to identify who the right kids are for that. But we'll send that out so you can kind of see, and we're just working directly with the principals in those schools to do that. But that's all I've got. I'll give you the rest of my time because clearly you've needed it tonight. So.
Ouch. Carol, we already have this room booked for that meeting at the end of this month, right? Okay.
But if you need any breakout rooms, let me know because I don't have any booked.
Okay, I'll probably come back in tomorrow to talk to you and work those details out. We just got to that level of detail last Friday, but I sure will. Thank you.
And are there other dates that you'll need this room?
And we've got those booked.
You already have those booked?
We've
Okay,
got
good.
those booked out as well. So yeah, Karl was a huge help, as well as some other folks. But yeah, we're
good.
Okay, thank you. Board comments or questions?
I just want to say a quick thank you, and I know we already touched on it already, but, and I told Amber this already too, but all of the effort and work that you put into all of your presentations and your slideshows and everything that you did, and Dr. Floyd, knowing that you did a presentation, your full spiel for one parent, just really was really awesome knowing that you went through all that work for not just him, but for all those campuses and everything. So I just appreciate you both. Wanted to
Thank
say
you
that.
very much. And glad it turned out for the best. And it sure makes it a lot more palatable when you get an end result like that. Yeah, I think I tallied it up and it was 78 presentations or something like that. So glad that's behind us and glad that we got her done.
Yes, it took a lot of people, and we especially appreciate both of you. Yeah. Next regular meeting, that's March the 7th, but because of spring break, that's our regular meeting for March, not too far away. And then discussion and possible actions to approve going into executive session to discuss employment of personnel and pending litigation. Do we need that?
Yes, we do. It won't be very long.
Yeah.
Remember I said that. Colonel?
You have a motion, please?
Move we go into executive session to do everything Willa just said.
Second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. Okay, we
Right,
are-
remember I said we were going to be quick.
Right, sure.